history lovers, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Hannah, and if you are new here, welcome to the channel. And today we are going to explore all of the Tudor princes. The people on this list are the male descendants of King Henry VII and Elizabeth of York, the first Tudor monarchs, and are therefore males who have a claim to the English throne and have English royal blood, even if they are not necessarily titled as or technically are princes. One caveat is that I won't be including illegitimate children, so people like Henry Fitzroy unfortunately have not made the list, as these are all legitimate male heirs. The other caveats that I've placed on this video is that everyone on this list was born before the death of the last Tudor monarch, Queen Elizabeth I, on the 24th of March 1603. I'm going to try and make this list as logical as possible. In the last few videos we looked at the sons of Henry VII, Elizabeth of York, as well as the descendants of King Henry VIII and Margaret Tudor, Queen of Scotland. Today we'll be looking at the descendants of Mary Tudor, Queen of France. Ferdinando Stanley, Earl of Derby. Ferdinando Stanley was born in around 1559 to Lady Margaret Clifford and Henry Stanley, Earl of Derby. Through his mother, he was the great-grandson of Mary Tudor, Duchess of Suffolk, and as such a direct descendant of King Henry VII and a claimant to the English throne. In around 1572, at the age of 13, Stanley enrolled as a student at the University of Oxford. A year later, Queen Elizabeth summoned him to her court to be shaped in good manners. He was then called to Parliament in his father's barony of Strange of Knocken and gained recognition as Ferdinando Lord Strange. In 1579, he wed Alice Spencer. Ferdinando was a devoted patron of the arts, revelling in music, dance, poetry and singing, with a particular passion for the theatre. He sponsored numerous writers, including Robert Greene, Christopher Marlowe, Edmund Spenser, and of course, William Shakespeare. In the early years, Shakespeare might have been in the employment of Lord Strange, possibly as a member of Lord Strange's Men, a troupe that underwent reorganisation to emphasise play performances featuring acrobatics and tumbling. By 1590, Strange had formed an alliance with the Admiral's Men, staging productions at the theatre owned by James Burbage, father of Richard Burbage. Throughout this period, Ferdinando carefully guarded his true beliefs, especially on religious matters. The Jesuit writer Robert Parsons expressed frustration, noting that some were dissatisfied with the course of this lord so far. Parsons harboured hopes that the Stanleys' ascent to the English throne could aid the Roman Catholic cause, but uncertainty surrounded Ferdinando's religious stance. Some viewed him as embracing all three religions, Roman Catholic, Church of England and Puritan, while others believed he adhered to none of them. Parsons remarks that due to this ambiguity, no side will esteem or trust him. Despite this, several reports reached Elizabeth's chief minister, Lord Burleigh, indicating that papists were working to garner support for Ferdinando, possibly contemplating his unanimous election as king, as suggested by one informant. Following his inheritance of his father's titles and estates, further reports regarding Roman Catholic plots involving Ferdinando reached William Cecil, Lord Burleigh. One such report involved a priest in Rome who asserted that the new Earl of Derby, although seemingly without a religious inclination, would find support for claiming a closer position to the throne. English rebels who had sought refuge abroad dispatched Richard Hesketh to encourage Ferdinando, suggesting that he had a legitimate claim to the English crown, due to his descent from Mary, Dowager Queen of France, the second surviving daughter of King Henry VII, and a younger sister of King Henry VIII. The Heskeths, having historical ties to the Stanley family, were selected for this mission, with Richard approaching Derby in an episode later known as the Hesketh plot. Ferdinando engaged in 2 confidential meetings with Richard, bringing him to London for further discussions with his mother, who had previously faced exclusion from the Queen's court over alleged plotting against Elizabeth. Eventually, Ferdinando vehemently rejected Hesketh's proposal, expressing scorn and indignation and turning him over to Burleigh. Hesketh underwent interrogation and was subsequently executed. Despite his anticipation that his loyalty to Elizabeth would be recognised, Stanley found himself sidelined from the case. His disappointment deepened when the coveted position of Lord Chamberlain of Chester was awarded to Thomas Egerton instead of himself, leading him to voice grievances about being crossed in court and crossed in his country. Just to add insult to injury, Thomas would then go on to marry Ferdinando's wife, Alice, after his death. His demise was shrouded in mystery. A few months after the Hesketh incident, he abruptly fell seriously and violently ill, raising suspicions of poisoning. Allegations surfaced that Hesketh had issued a veiled threat, predicting his imminent demise if he failed to embrace the proposed plans. There were claims that the Jesuits were behind the poisoning, with suspicions pointing to his gentleman of horse as the potential administrator of the toxic substance. The historian John Stowe meticulously documented the details of his illness, and there is speculation that poisonous mushrooms might have been employed. A contemporary account chronicling the Earl's symptoms, the remedies he sought, and the grounds for suspicions of witchcraft has endured. Although he initially fell ill at Knowsley Hall, he journeyed to Latham House, where he resorted to bezoar stone and purportedly utilised powdered unicorn's horn as medicinal treatment. His death occurred on the 16th of April, 1594. Bezoar horn, powdered unicorn horn, are we in Harry Potter? His abrupt death raised suspicions of poisoning, fostering concern about potential Catholic conspiracies aimed at overthrowing Elizabeth. William Stanley, Earl of Derby. William Stanley was the younger offspring of Henry Stanley, 4th Earl of Derby, and Lady Margaret Clifford. His maternal grandparents were Henry Clifford, 2nd Earl of Cumberland, and Lady Eleanor Brandon. Eleanor, in turn, was the 3rd offspring of Charles Brandon, Duke of Suffolk, and Mary Tudor. Stanley received his education at St. John's College, Oxford. In 1582, he embarked on a journey to the continent, exploring university towns in France and possibly attending Henry of Navarre's academy at Nerac. Upon his return in 1585, he was sent to Paris as part of a diplomatic mission to Henry III of France, extending his stay on the continent for an additional 3 years of personal exploration before returning home once more. There are suggestions that he might have been accompanied by the young John Donne during his travels. Throughout his sojourn, William Stanley purportedly led a spirited life, engaging in duels, romantic escapades, and adopting disguises, including posing as a friar while in Italy. Tales claim that he ventured to Egypt, where he allegedly fought and defeated a tiger, and proceeded to Anatolia, narrowly avoiding execution for an alleged insult to the Prophet Muhammad. Supposedly, he was spared because a Muslim noblewoman desired to marry him, an offer he declined. The narrative goes on to assert that he continued his journey to Moscow and Greenland, returning to Europe aboard a whaling ship. These vivid anecdotes find their origins in a popular ballad titled Sir William Stanley's Garland, which embellishes his 3-year absence from England into a fantastical 21 years travels through most parts of the world. Although recorded in 1800 and published in 1801, no existing documentary evidence supports these fantastical adventures. Nevertheless, these stories became recurring elements in 19th century biographies of the 6th Earl. Following his father's demise in 1593, William, as the second son, inherited several manors and lordships, including Bicester in Oxfordshire, Holborn in Middlesex, Burton in Lonsdale in Yorkshire, and West Lidford in Somerset. However, his elder brother Ferdinando Stanley, the 5th Earl of Derby, obtains the earldom and its associated estates. Tragically, Ferdinando passed away a few months later in April 1594, leaving behind 3 daughters but no sons. Consequently, Ferdinando's daughters asserted their rights to their father's estates, while William assumed the titles of Earl of Derby and Baron Strange. Complicating matters further, Ferdinando's eldest daughter, Anne Stanley, Countess of Castlehaven, became an heir presumptive to Elizabeth's throne in 1596, following her grandmother's death. This triggered a protracted legal dispute that resulted in a judgment declaring the Isle of Man a possession of the 5th Earl, forfeited to the Queen. However, the Queen relinquished her claim to it in acknowledgement of the Stanley family's contributions. In the resolution, Stanley was granted Latham and Knowsley, along with other lands and estates spanning Lancashire, Cumberland, Yorkshire, Cheshire, Wales, and beyond. Meanwhile, Ferdinando's daughters received estates tied to the baronies and the Isle of Man, which they eventually sold to their uncle, the 6th Earl. His title to the Isle of Man was later confirmed by James I. While maintaining the lordship of Man, Derby delegated the administration of the Isle of Man to his niece Anne Stanley. On the 26th of January 1595, he wed Elizabeth de Vere. Elizabeth's maternal grandparents were William Cecil, Baron Burghley, and Mildred Cook. Some speculate that William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream drew inspiration from their wedding, suggesting that the play premiered during their marital festivities. In the initial years, their relationship encountered turbulence, with claims of Elizabeth having affairs with Robert Devereux, the 2nd Earl of Essex, and Walter Raleigh. However, as Derby's financial and social standing stabilised, the relationship found stability. The couple went on to have 5 children. In 1612, he transferred the title to his wife Elizabeth. Although Derby's assumption of the barony of Strange faced no challenges during his lifetime, it was later deemed incorrect after his death. Consequently, a new creation of the barony was bestowed upon his son. Derby is among those suggested by proponents of the Shakespearean authorship question to be the actual author of William Shakespeare's works. This proposition was initially introduced in 1891 by the archivist James H. Greenstreet. Greenstreet identified 2 letters by the Jesuit spy George Fenner from 1599 reporting that Derby was unlikely to further the Roman Catholic cause as he was busy penning plays for the common players. On the 29th of September 1642, William Stanley, Earl of Derby, died at the age of 80 or 81. Thank you for listening to the final part of this series. Make sure you check out the previous parts if you haven't seen them yet, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And make sure that notification bell is on so you never miss a video. I also have a female version of this series, so if you want to know all about the Tudor princesses, go check that out. And if you really enjoyed this video, why not give this video a super thanks? But anyway guys, until the next one, have a wonderful day. Bye!